I'm talking about how to analyze the job announcement for a corporate defense contracting job. And we can go into a couple different areas as well, but initially, what I'd like to do is just go into defense contracting jobs, how to analyze those, the federal and the defense contractors. And then, if you have any questions, then what we can do is we can move into other types of jobs as well. All right, because not everyone wants to apply, obviously, to a defense contractor job, and there's other jobs out there. So how do you analyze them so you can ensure that you get the biggest bang for the buck, right? How do you target and tailor your resume to that job? And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. So if you have any questions, please ask the questions as we progress tonight. And let me fix this real quick. All right. Please ask your questions tonight, and so we can search your particular job if you want. I mean, that's the fun part about doing this, is that we can actually help you in real time. So why not, right? Why not? And all right. So if you have a question, please ask it. If you have a job that you want me to look at tonight, please type it in. There's a chat block on the right-hand side, and we'll go through that. And if there aren't any suggestions tonight where I can help you out, then what we'll do is we will just go through some of the different defense contracting type of positions and how to analyze those positions and maybe where they come from, right? And this series is obviously, we're going to take it slow and methodical so you understand how to analyze the jobs, where the job announcements come from. 101, corporate job 101, that's where we found a job. Now, this one is going to be where we actually analyze those different jobs. All right. So again, if you have any positions that you want to search for tonight and you want me to look over, go ahead and send them to me. Just put them in the chat block on the right-hand side, and I'll search them, and then we'll use those as an example. In the meantime, what we're going to do is well, actually, let me just do this since we're live. If you have a job announcement, please post it. Please post the link here, and we can work on it tonight. All right. So initially, what we're going to look at is we can just look at generic positions. But first, let's look at maybe a job that for a different MOS, right? Like if you're transitioning out of the military and you want to find a position for, it doesn't really matter, 35 Charlie, let's say. If you want a 35 Charlie job, and I'm going to switch over so you can see my screen. If you want a 35 Charlie job and you want to know what a 35 Charlie is, you can go to the 35 Charlie, let's say Army, and it'll tell you some of the job codes, like the MOSs, so you understand what those are for the military careers. You can look through those, but let's just search for a position right now, like electrician or something like that. Now, what I like to do, because I really enjoy searching for different types of jobs, I think it's actually very interesting. It's challenging when you're trying to find different jobs in different locations, and so let's try to find an electrician job in Indianapolis, Indiana, right? So we're going to search a couple different ways here. electrician job, Indianapolis. One of the things I like to do is, and Indeed is really good with this, but what I like to do is I think it's a great challenge to try to find these positions because a lot of military folks would like to move home. I mean, once they leave the military, what do they really want to do? They want to just go back home. Take a break, go back home. Well, they need a job, so let's try to find them a job back home. And so that's asked of me quite a bit, and I enjoy doing that. I used to do that for years, actually, for all over the world. And some people were going to be reassigned to Germany. I'd find them jobs in Germany that were linked to their career, their MOS. And so, that's in Corporate Job 101. That's what we go through in 101 to try to figure out, how do you search? What do you search for? In this session, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the actual position. So let's look down here for lead electrician. I mean, the whole point of Battlefield resume methodology is to actually get you the job at the highest salary possible. So, like, for instance, you got a couple jobs here, $50 an hour, $30 an hour. Those are really, really good. So which one do you want to look at? Well, might as well look at the $50 one an hour. I mean, the objective is to get the highest salary possible, so why settle for less? I mean, might as well go for the gusto, go for the most amount of money you possibly can, and then if it doesn't work out, then you're more than likely qualified as you come down the salary tier levels. All right. So let me just fix this real quick. I got a screen problem. All right. All right. So as we move through here. Let me fix this a little bit. All right, this is what's interesting about doing this live. I love it. Okay, so there we go. All right, so let's look at this position. Move this around a little bit so you guys can see it. Now, in this particular position, let's increase that a little bit. This position is a panel builder, electrical assembly technician. Now, this is very interesting. This is not a defense contractor job. Now, what we'll do is we're going to make this even more interesting, actually. We're going to compare the different job announcements. All right? We're going to make this a little more fun. So, again, if you have a job announcement you would like for me to look at while I'm looking at this one tonight and use yours as an example as we go through it, feel free. Type it in the chat block. For the time being, though, what we're going to do is we're just going to go to some defense contractor company. Let's just go to CACI, khaki. They usually have quite a few positions available. We're going to go to their career website. Then we're going to go down to the keyword search. In the keyword search, we're going to type in electrician. All right. Now, you got a challenge here because now we've got one that requires a secret and one requires a top secret polygraph. All right. Don't let that scare you. This is what we talked about in 101. You can't let it scare you. Why? Because even if you don't have a top secret SCI with a polygraph, the only thing it says in here is that it must be obtainable. That means I would apply to it. So, and it's in Hawaii. So who wouldn't want to live in Hawaii? That sounds great to me. Let's click on it. Okie dokie. See here, clearance status must be obtainable. So we're going to look at this job and we're going to kind of compare it to the other job. Right? I mean, we have two jobs here now. We got the electrician, panel builder. This is in Indianapolis, Indiana, called Factory Fix. That's the company. This is $50 an hour, and it's contract work. So what does that mean? I'm assuming right now what that means, if just from looking at it and having done this a while, is it's probably an independent contractor. Unless when we read through here, it actually says that you have benefits with the company. More than likely, you're probably a 1099 contractor, which is 1099 is basically an independent contractor. So that would make sense as to why this is more, the salary's higher than normals, because they don't have to pay the overhead. So, it's a check and balance. But if you're, let's say, a retired military and you have benefits already, then this may be a great job for you. If you're not retired military, this would still be a great job. However, it's not going to come automatically with the benefits. However, you can purchase those, but because you would be running your own business at this point and being an independent contractor. All right, so that's the first part. Now, what's it say? FactoryFix.com is a new website that connects manufacturing companies that need additional resources to local industrial automation experts. All right. Now let's go back to this one with this company. Now this is a defense contract. Now how do I know it's a defense contracting one? Well, for one, there's hundreds of defense contractors. And if you don't know the defense contractors, then all you really have to do is type in defense contracting and go to some of those websites, and you'll see an entire list, hundreds of companies that you're probably familiar with. So this is a defense contractor. Here's the requisition number. We know it's in Hawaii. We know that this is the job category right here, network telecom. Now, why that is important, and I will cover that later on in the year when I start doing the networking webinars. But why that's important is because when you see in a defense contractor position, job category, a lot of times what you're going to see here is the division within the company. All right, so a lot of these companies have separated themselves into certain divisions, just like the military would. They'd have you have a maintenance platoon, you have an air defense missile platoon, you have, a scout platoon, you have a regular infantry platoon, whatever. So the companies do the exact same thing. And so why this is beneficial to know is that it helps when you network. Because again, when I teach you the battlefield resume methodology of networking, what that means is you are tailoring your efforts and targeting your efforts to a particular position, particular company, something. There's a purpose behind what you're doing. And so this would be very helpful knowing where your target may be. Okay, that will help. All right, so let's go down a little bit. Now, we read now these are duties and responsibilities. On these types of positions, sometimes you'll see the company description at the top, or sometimes you'll see it at the bottom. This one here, you're going to see it at the bottom. All right, and it's interesting. I mean, at the end here, it says CACI provides dynamic careers for approximately 15,000 employees. And they're in 120 offices worldwide. So just right then and there, this is a large company that if you want to work literally almost anywhere around the world, they probably have positions. Maybe they're not open right now, but they have positions that you will probably see advertised every once in a while for anywhere you ever want to go. All right. So it's really good to see some of these big companies like that, because these are sites that I would search to try to find jobs for people overseas, or if you wanted to go overseas, or military spouses, for an example. Their husband's being deployed, or PCSing over to Germany. They need a job. Where am I going to look? These are the sites that I would probably look at first. All right, so this is the job description. I mean, not the job description, but the actual company's description. Now let's go back to the electrician position. So this one now says we send you the opportunities for projects or gigs, which is interesting. So this is probably a small company. I'd go to their website real quick. Let's see. Let's just check this website out and see who it is, because this is actually, I'm taking you through what I would do if I'm doing research on a job announcement. This is why it adds a lot of time, but it's definitely worth doing the recon, is what I call it. This is actually the recon, one aspect of it. The other aspect of a recon is actually going in and applying for a position that you're not going to, like for me, that I'm not going to apply to. However, I go into these positions to see what they ask for. All right, so here's the company here. It'd be interesting to kind of go through how it works. It's a small company, it looks like. And, all right, so now we're going to go back here, and it says, we send you an opportunity for projects or gigs. So that implies that, again, you're probably an independent contractor. When our customers have a project that matches your skill. All right, so what that probably means, and all of us probably know this, just reiterating what it implies to me, is that they will probably put your skill set in their database, and whenever somebody wants a project done, a good example would be, let's say, Home Depot. If you go in and say to Home Depot, I want to purchase this air conditioner, and I don't want to put it in, I want you guys to put it in. Well, Home Depot probably does something similar with these guys do, where they reach out to a contractor, subject matter expert, to do the work. All right? And so they call them gigs here. So, small projects. You accept them when you're interested and available. So that's not bad. $50 an hour. So if you have a skill set, which most military personnel do, they all have skill sets and multiple skill sets. I mean, for instance, have you worked on vehicles? Yes. Can you rebuild an entire vehicle? Well, I don't know. Maybe so, maybe not. Can you rebuild just the engine? Maybe so. Maybe you're an airframe person. Maybe you're the wheels. You can replace wheels. All of those types of things. And this would be kind of interesting to see, because this is, and they tell you down here a little bit further what they're looking for. But so let's read a little bit further. The panel builder performs any combination of the following tasks. All right, so what I do, and this is going to be very similar to what you saw if you attended my federal resume writing webinars, and that is I separate all of these sentences. This isn't as drastic as the federal resume and the federal job announcement. It's a lot shorter, obviously. And, the majority of this, though, is still the same principles. You have to tailor your resume to what's in this targeted job announcement. So, for instance, if I were to separate each one of these elements, then what I would end up asking you is this. Can you assemble electronic components? Period. Yes or no, and tell me your experience in doing that. Can you do subassemblies? Can you assemble electronic products? Can you assemble electronic systems? Now you see how we just kept the first, can you assemble electronic? And then all of these others are basically subsystems. It's basically creating an outline. Right? That's exactly what this is. It really creates an outline, a prioritized outline to write your resume. It's no more difficult than that. Instead, what it forces you to do, though, is it forces you to write your resume in a tailored fashion and not write an autobiography. All right? Because your experience that's not related to these items are definitely not as important to the reader as the experience that meets these items. All right? So here we said, can you read or have you ever read work orders? Have you ever read electrical schematics? Have you ever read production drawings? Have you ever read sample assemblies? Okay, now all of us have obviously received verbal orders to do the duties, but all of this up here is very interesting. It's only 2 sentences, but if you separate every comma and you write them out just like we did, you come up with a very detailed outline, and your narrative will probably be very long for each. Now, the secret is to tailor your answers for each one of those outlined areas for each job that's applicable to this job announcement. All right, so if you have 5 different jobs in your past, 3 of which align to this particular job, then I would assume right now that you will only put 3 jobs in your resume. There's literally no reason for a targeted resume to put anything other than what's relevant on the resume. All right, and then whatever is relevant on the resume needs to be tailored directly towards this target. And the target I mean is this particular job announcement is the target. All right, you're tailoring your resume for this target. Well, how do you do that? How do you zero your resume? Well, how you zero it is just what we did. We separated every sentence, and then we separated every comma, and then we made each one of those elements the outline to each job history narrative, and we write directly to those. That's how you target. Now we go down here even further, right? Because it talks about receives verbal instructions regarding duties to be performed. All right, so what they want to see, because it talks about duties to be performed in the future, they want to see what you've done in the past and then the accomplishments and impact that you had in the past while doing those. So for instance, because that's a great indicator of your future performance. So let's see, experience with panel fabrication. Now we're going to separate these again. I'm going to repeat this. Panel fabrication, have you done that? Yes or no, and tell me how. Panel build, yes or no. All right, component layouts, electrical enclosures, electrical assemblies, and controls. All right, now we've just seen assemblies twice, right? Because we saw assemblies, sub-assemblies up here. All right, we've seen it a couple times now. So I usually try to highlight those words that we see more than once. So now down here, connects wires between individual components, right? So you just keep on going through these just like that. Now let's go back to the contracting job. Let's look at that, because look, these narratives are very small. Now, duties and responsibilities. And again, I call each one of these areas. See how they're so you have the top here, like the header. That's key terrain. And I call it key terrain, military type of key terrain, because this itself is a battlefield, and the key terrain for battlefield resume methodology is each one of the little segments of this job announcement that you have to analyze. So it'd be almost like having different mountains and hills throughout your battlefield in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever, and you got to analyze each one of those to gain the advantage. This is no different. Each one of these areas is key terrain according to BRM, Battlefield Resume Methodology. Each one of these. So each one of these areas you look at as key terrain and you analyze each one separately. So right now what we're on is duties and responsibilities. So in this one, what you're looking at is design and install power distribution lines. Now, what I would do is I would sit here and I would ask you, have you designed power distribution lines? Have you installed power distribution lines? Those are two different areas. So don't get caught in what I call a battlefield trap. Don't get caught in a battlefield trap by taking the sentence verbatim and trying to copy and paste this sentence verbatim into your resume. That's not going to work. Or trying to copy and paste this and write directly to this without splitting it up into more detail. The more you split it up and decipher it, the better it is, right? The more detailed your narrative is going to be. So instead of saying design and install power distribution lines, we're going to say design power distribution lines and then install power distribution lines. All right. Let's see. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next one. Install conduit, install junction boxes, install power filtering equipment, install power monitoring equipment, install UPS systems, install redundant, and backup. All right, so you separate each one of those and make that your outline for each job you've ever held. All right. Any questions out there so far? Any questions? All right. Again, if you have a job that you want to see and you want us to look at, then chat it, put it on the chat block there, and we'll look online and I'll do the analysis of it right now. So we'll go back to this electrician position that we found by Factory Fix. Again, $50 an hour. It's good money. We'll go down to what the requirements are. Now, similar to key terrain, whenever I see requirements, whether they're desired or mandatory, they're still requirements. The mandatory requirements, obviously you have to have, or your resume is going to get thrown out. Desired, not so much. So at least the mandatory requirements section, like this one, required experience, you have to meet. It's very interesting because what happens with the required section in Battlefield resume methodology is we call that a decision point. So just like on a battlefield, when you would look at a certain point on the ground and say, look, this is the decision point. Either we go left or we go right. Either we make this decision or we make that decision. That decision point is what I call the required experience, right? The required section of a job announcement. Because you really have to decide, do you honestly have what's required or not? All right. So for instance, here we go. Required experience. Do you have 5 years of machine wiring, and do you have 5 years of control panel building? Now, what does 5 years actually mean? Does anybody know? I mean, if you know what 5 years mean, what does 5 years mean to you? We have a few listeners out there. If you can, right now, type in the chat block. Tell me what you think 5 years actually means. If you were reviewing a resume, how would you review it to see if they met the 5-year limit? All right, remember, because this says it's required experience. All right, it says it's required experience. So what they're looking for is really 10 years. Okay, they're looking for 10 years. But what are you looking for? What on the resume are you looking for? I mean, I know you're looking for the dates. But what's interesting is, and it's always interesting to look at these job announcements because you have to understand how the process normally works when your resume goes into a company. Now this company may be a little different because this company looks pretty small. So they may be, the subject matter expert may be looking at this. However, a lot of companies will use